Welcome to Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center. I am Reverend Margaret Palagye, the founding minister of our community, and I welcome you here this evening to our Saturday night live inspirational talk. And I hope you get a lot out of it and join us for the prayer directly after the service. So let me tell you that we have a website, joyfulgathering.org, and I would love for you to visit this website. It's got all of our classes, our events, everything that's taking place at Joyful Gathering via Zoom, because we are going to resume in-person services, hopefully in March. So stay tuned for that. I'll give you those live updates here on our newsletter, all of that stuff. Now, we have a Wednesday night healing service where we do about a 20-minute meditation and then a group prayer for the ministers and everybody from the community or outside of our community, because there is only one world, right? So you're all invited every Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Info is on our website. And while you are there, we would appreciate if you would kindly make a donation to keep us going. We're going anyway, but it would be helpful. Okay, so let's begin this evening by taking a really deep breath together. Come on. Oh, inhale that joy. And exhale that joy. Yes. Inhale light. And exhale the light. So that we are centered. We need a place to come to center in this joy, in this love, in this light that is the spiritual teachings that we have at Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center. So let's get right on with the inspirational talk this evening. It is called, It's Your Life. Live it. Okay? Dr. Robert Schuller authored a book entitled, If It's Up to Me, no. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And in it, he wrote this: the 21st century belongs first and foremost to a new breed of humans, driven by a strong, sensitive, spiritual individualism. And that's what we are here to be, strong, spiritual individuals. The truth really is, there is one person on earth who can dream your dreams, and that is you. There is one person on earth that can destroy your dreams, and that is you. No one else. Full accountability here. So this year, what shall it be? It's your life. You get to live it. So what shall it be for you? You get to decide that. I'm going to get into that tonight, as we've been doing all of January. This year, will you do that consciously, intentionally, on purpose? And that's what this month is about, living our lives on purpose consciously, setting the tone for living in 2021 more consciously awake and more spiritually in tune. Make this profound decision right now. If it's up to me, if it is to be, it is up to me. So again, if it is to be, it is up to me. The power that we call God is a dynamic, creative, divine energy that continuously expresses through you and through your thinking, beliefs, and attitudes. Ernest Holmes, Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, wrote this: the power behind all things is without limit, but in working for us, it must work through us. Realizing then, he says, that while the power is limitless, it must become operative through our own thought. We shall see that what we need is not some greater power, but a greater consciousness, a deeper realization of life, a more sublime concept of being, a more intimate concept of an already indwelling God. We must at all times, but especially right now, it feels like we must connect with that indwelling divinity. That is the truth of our being. It is the only surety that we can depend upon. So we're going to move into a deeper realization of life, a more sublime concept of being, a more intimate concept of an already indwelling God. And today we have three more tools for you to use. I love these three, so listen to these three. Refocus, renew, and recommit. Refocus, renew, and recommit. Refocus your awareness. Renew your mind. And recommit to your heart. So let's begin with the refocus of your awareness. So right now, let us refocus our awareness on the divine good, knowing it is always in operation, in all places, all times. This omnipresent energy is the truth of who we are. It goes nowhere, it is eternal, and it is always there to support us. We experience that which we look at the most. What are we looking at? What are we focusing our thoughts on? Because we know what we focus on grows. So we really have to do that check on our mind, like what am I focusing on right now? Because that's what we are creating. At Luke chapter 11, verse 34, the scripture says this: the lamp of your body is your eyes. When therefore your eye is bright, your whole body will also be lighted. And we're spending more time. Are we spending more time looking at the problems in our lives? Are we? Or are we disciplining ourselves to see the good? To know that God's good is multiplying itself in all, through all, in all circumstances, in all events. There is the divine good of God waiting to be expressed. That's what we want to focus on. And I really mean all circumstances, not just the ones that are so easy to look at and be with, but those difficult circumstances. There's a lesson, there's a good in there for each and every one of us. And so we know that God is good all the time. God is here, everywhere, present, right here and right now. This divinity is good, and that means good exists everywhere. Even in the most challenging situations, when we don't see the good, it's not because it's not present, but we are simply not aware of the goods present. We're just not aware. So that's our first key point, is to become aware. And there's a Bible story, and I know you've heard this, of David and Goliath. And it offers a really powerful spiritual lesson, which is so applicable right here. In the story, David at the time was a small shepherd. And he was bringing food to his brothers, who were Israelite soldiers under King Saul's command. He heard of a giant Philistine soldier, Goliath, who was terrorizing the Israelites. And so David volunteered to Saul, saying, "Let no man's heart fail because of him, because of that giant. Your servant I will go and fight this Philistine." At first, the king brushed off David. How could a mere kid take on this massive warrior? But David was persistent. Perhaps he could even be called a pest. The story spends a lot of time describing Goliath's fearsome height, his bulk, and his weighty armor. They are all vividly described for a simple reason: to let us know that the story is about us. The story is about us. Listen to this. We tend to see the Goliaths in our lives, the problems, as massive, feels immense, becoming entirely caught up in our beliefs about Goliath's power. Those problems equate to Goliath, and it seems to run our lives instead of us running our own lives. Perhaps it would be wise to refocus your awareness on God's good rather than the massive strength of your problem. Said another way, instead of bringing your big problems to God, how about bringing your big God to the problems? Sounds better, I think, and we have the power to do that. When King Saul finally allowed David to take on Goliath, he outfitted the young shepherd with a helmet and armor and a sword. David was going into battle and therefore given tools that appeared to fit the circumstance. David knew, we too tend to take our Goliaths by following protocol, the way the world has trained us to follow the protocol. But if you do things the way you've always done them, you'll get the results that you've always gotten. So David was thinking differently than this. Good metaphor for our lives. There is another way. David, for instance, didn't feel supported by this armor. He felt weighed down. He knew better. He knew better than to try to tackle a giant in giant's garb. He shrugged off his armor and reached instead for his staff that he used to tend the sheep with. And he chose 5 smooth stones that he got from a riverbed and put them in his bag with his slingshot. And David said to Goliath, "You come to see me with a sword and a spear, and I a javelin. I come to you in the name of the Lord." In other words, he chose to focus his awareness on the power of the God within him. Armed with the tools that he knew to be his strength, and armed with the faith in that strength. And it's the strength of God that he was depending upon right there. And David hurled a stone at the Goliath with his slingshot, and he fell. David knew that no matter how diminutive he appeared, his faith was bigger than a boastful giant. He knew this. I don't know what your Goliath may be right now, but I do know that if you draw upon your resources that are natural to you, draw upon the faith that you have in the God of your understanding, and like David, willing to step out in faith, you will harness the divine strength that is within you, that is supporting you, that is urging you forward. It never fails. It never fails. We must have the courage to step out against those Goliaths and take with us our armor of faith and knowing that we too are powerful beings. And that is the truth. That is the truth. The David experience says this: I can do this. My size isn't a barrier. My age isn't a barrier. My education isn't a barrier. And everything that looks like armor that I might put on to protect me really does nothing but confine me. Whatever I face is nothing compared to who I am. Each and every one of us, we are warriors of the divine. We are divine warriors, but in a peaceful, loving way. Refocus your awareness by reminding yourself, there is no problem confronting me that can begin to match the awesome power of the God within me. That leads us to the second part. Renew your mind. The greatest New Thought statement in the Bible says this: be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And this is a true story. One that I've used before, but it's so appropriate right here. It illustrates one person who renewed her mind to transform her life from poverty and struggle to great success. Several years ago, an important speaker addressed the student body of a small college in South Carolina. The auditorium was filled with students excited to have this opportunity to hear this person of great stature speak. After the governor gave introduction, the speaker moved to the microphone, looked at the audience from left to right, and began. She began. I was born to a mother who was deaf and could not speak. I do not know who my father was. I still don't know. The first job I ever had was in a cotton field. The audience was spellbound. She continued. Nothing has to remain the same the way it is. If that's not the way we want it to be, she said. It isn't luck. No, it isn't luck. And it isn't circumstances. And it isn't being born in a certain way that causes a person's future to become what it becomes. That's the truth. And she softly repeated this: nothing has to remain the way it is. That's not the way, if it's not the way we want it to be. All we have to do is change the situation that brings unhappiness or dissatisfaction. And answer this question. This is the question you ask yourself. How do I want this situation to be? How do I want this situation to be? And then we must commit totally to personal actions that carry us there. And I talk all the time about those little steps. They all add up, and they take us right to that destination that we want to be in. And then, the end of the story, this beautiful smile shone forth on her face. My name is Azie Taylor Morton. I stand before you as the treasurer of the United States of America. This woman overcame enormous odds that would say, oh, she's not going to be anything. What is she going to be? And became the treasurer of the United States of America. There's a huge freedom in that story. It's what makes New Thought so very powerful in our lives. Nothing has to remain the way it is if that's not the way we want it. It's your life. You get to live it. and this is not just a bunch. I want you to know this, that I've taken these teachings and I've used them in my life. And I've stepped out of who I was several times, and I'm sure a lot of you have. And I've stepped out of those old ways of being. Not easy, but it had to be done because it was not the way I wanted it to be. Until I could live my life the way I want it to be. And each and every one of us is capable of that. It's never too late. I can tell you that. It's never, ever too late. Don't let your belief that age, money, or other lack and limitation thinking can stop you. Because I'm here to tell you that's not true. That absolutely is not true. If you are dissatisfied with what is happening in your life, only you can change it. Sometimes, most of the time, it takes courage to make a change, but it is so worth it. It is so worth it. Only you can live your life, so live it now. You want to renew your mind about something. All you have to do is ask yourself the question, how do I want it to be? How do I want it to be? Then totally commit to personal beliefs that support your success and the actions that will carry you there. Which brings us into our third R for the evening. Recommit your heart. To what, you might say? Recommit it to what? To the beliefs and actions that support our living our life. Our teaching, this New Thought teaching, this religious science teaching is so empowering, and the deep belief that the universe always supports us will take you there. It will take you through and around and over all obstacles. It will. So a good place to start then is the basic tenets of the science of mind. First, take an inventory. Take an inventory of your spiritual practices. What are you doing every day to align with your divinity? What are you doing every day? Key, very important. This is the perfect time to refine them, to retool, and to use them when needed. Perhaps working with a practitioner, one of our spiritual ministers, doing a session with them will help you uncover, and know it will, uncover all kinds of beliefs and limitations and what has been blocking us from moving forward. Because sometimes we can't do it on our own. We don't do that well. I'll speak for myself. I don't do that well. My spiritual practices keep me aligned, and I'm telling you that being in one of our spiritual classes, or any spiritual classes, speaks to you, is a way of keeping in touch and realigning. I personally need accountability. So if I have an appointment, I have a class, I'm going to be there. I'm going to either teach it or I'm going to be a student in it. But sometimes, most of the time, both. So this evening, I invite you to recommit your heart to the basic tenets of science of mind. They will lead you to that greater life. It's your life. Live it. This is the beginning right now of a whole new year. A new year full of possibilities and potentialities. Our decision to be fully alive and aware of God's good, this is our decision. Make it this year. A year to demonstrate more and more of this divine good. Manifesting peace and joy and abundance in our lives. We can do this. We can. And we do it by refocusing our awareness, renewing our mind, and recommitting to our heart's desires. So I want to close this evening with a little prayer. It's not really a prayer, it's a little meditation from Ernest Holmes.